So this is about PowerShell, and it's just illustration to my blog post, and perhaps it will be first of about 10 modules, 10 labs about PowerShell for Windows Server 2008 administrators. And in this first section we are about to explore the core of Windows PowerShell, so you will be able to see how it looks like, what it usually does for you, and well, how to use it. So first things first, we just run the PowerShell. Here it is. As you can see, it looks pretty much like a normal command prompt or like normal shell. It gives you a pretty normal command line prompt in which you can even input normal DOS commands. However, everything you see, and if it looks like a normal command prompt, it's just a picture of it. It's not a real command prompt, and behind every command, including dir, etc., is much more difficult, much more complex command of Windows PowerShell. I will explain about it later, but at this moment we will concentrate on basis of PowerShell and its commands. Let's clear the screen, and we'll try to input the command get help. I type get h and then press tab, and it fills it for me just like normal command prompt. And I want to get help for all commands which begin with get. And here is the list. There is a name, there is a category, and there is synopsis. And while the name is quite obvious, the category, as you can see, they all are commandlets. What is commandlet? It's like a command that you can use in PowerShell, the native one, or you can write one yourself. Synopsis is a short information about it, but as you can see, it's very short, so you can get very small information from it. So if you see any command that looks interesting and you want to get more information about it, there is a second command that you should remember, is get command. And it gives you the syntax of this command. Again, like in previous get help, it gives you the type of the command, which is commandlet in this case, the name, and instead of synopsis, which is a brief description of what this command does, there is a definition, which is a syntax. However, this information is definitely not enough when you want to know, want to learn about any command you never used before. In that case, In that case, you will be able to use the same get help command, but without the asterisk, which means you don't want to get result about array of commands or array of help files in this particular case, but you want to get all the information that is possible to get about the particular command or a particular object. And here we meet the major concept of PowerShell is that it's object-oriented, which means that everything it works with is an object. It's a bit hard to swallow, but you will see it even in this particular lab, what it means that everything is an object. And this is the biggest difference with all other scripting languages between PowerShell and whatever else. But in short, this means that we can work in PowerShell, we can work with everything. This could be a commandlet, help file, database record, registry, hive or record, just about everything. Let's imagine the situation that you need to do something with, okay, it was ACL. Okay, you need to do something with ACL, which is access control list for a file. Let's imagine that you as a system administrator want to programmatically from script change the access control list, which means the what you see in security tab for a file or folder, who has control over this object, this file or directory. So most likely the command or something will have ACL in its name. So the command you give to get information about it, the first command is get help asterisk ACL asterisk. And you learn that there are two commands. One of them is get ACL, another is set ACL. The category is commandlet. That's not particularly interesting for you at this moment. And the synopsis is get the security descriptor for whatever, and that changes the security descriptor of whatever. It's enough to understand that this is what you need, but you need a detailed help, and to do that you will use the same command get help, with parameter of that command get ACL, and now you have nearly everything, but not really everything about this command, because here you have only name, synopsis, syntax, detailed description, related links and remarks. However, PowerShell is installed together with very large help database, which gives you also the examples of usage of that command. And it's quite easy to get the examples using the same get help, the command that you need, and then the switch examples. And now what you see is 4 examples of use of that particular command that you can use in your scripts. And as you can see, instead of get help, we can type just help and then get ACL. And this is so-called alias. Just as I said before, when we type a command which looks very familiar because it comes from DOS, in fact, there is another command behind it, the PowerShell command. So help is one of the first aliases that you will encounter, and in fact it leads to get help. PowerShell is object-oriented, and it can work with COM objects, just like VBScript can. It can work with VMI objects, but the base of the PowerShell and its biggest power is that it's built over .NET framework, and so it can use .NET objects. And just like .NET framework, it can work with all objects that you can imagine, that you can handle in Windows. And by working with objects, it means that it also can create these objects. And the command for creating objects is new item. I will use get help because when you are using alias like help, you cannot use tab to autocomplete. But when you're using the PowerShell command, you can autocomplete. The switch full gives you the complete help information, including all the examples. This gives us complete information about this commandlet, which creates the object. And this effectively can create such things as file system files, or if we are working with registry, it will be registry key. It could be, well, nearly whatever. And just for an example, we will try to create the file. We will create it on drive D, actually on root, in root directory of drive D. It will be named labs, and the type, let the type be directory. So we will create directory named labs in the root directory of drive D. And here is a little hint. As you can see, Microsoft PowerShell core / file system, which means that instead of file system, there could be something more, something else. Now let's change to drive D and see whether we have this directory. Yes, we get the same information as before. We've just created it. We change to drive D just like in MS-DOS prompt, and we change to something called PS drive or PowerShell drive. Yes, it could be equal to your real hard drive directory on the partition on your hard disk. However, not only. You can create your own PS drives, and they could point to any location, like registry key, like, well, you will see. Actually, the possibilities are endless. So let's create new PS drive, and let's name it labs, just like this directory. PS provider will be file system, PowerShell provider. The root is D. The correct way would be to type this way, but since it's root, you don't have to really. Well, it's not really important, but you don't have to. As you can see, no problem here. I didn't type the root directory, but PowerShell was smart enough to add it. So I've created the new PS drive, and what does it mean? It means that that now I can change to labs PS drive. As you can understand, if I would want to change the directory, I wouldn't type that last character. It is only used with drives. So here is my drive. Let's change to drive C, and now again labs. No, let's do it without this symbol. Boom, error. There is no directory. C users administrator labs. Now change to drive labs, and we are in our drive labs. However, just to illustrate what could be the PS drive, let's input the command which lists all the PS drives. And that would be get PS drive. Just like all PowerShell commands, they are either new or get or whatever action you want to do with it. When it's without parameter, when it's just get PS drive, it's assuming that I want to get all of them. And here we have all of our normal file system root directories on all drives, A, C, D, E, D. But also we have certificate, we have environment variable, we have function, and even registry keys like HK current user, HK local machine. So for example, we can get to HK current user and type dir to list all keys below it under the HK current user, and then using the same normal commands to change I would say directories, but it's not directories, it's keys in this case. We can browse and operate registry effectively without using any additional objects. It's very, very transparent. Okay. Another thing, just as we use the help as an alias to get help, Why do we use these aliases? The main goal is simplicity. It's not always very easy to remember all these long commands, and sometimes you want to create a shortcut in your learning curve, which means you know commands from Windows, you know commands perhaps from Linux, and you want these commands to work here in PowerShell. And so you create a new alias. In this case, we will create new alias. It will be VMI, Windows Management Instrumentation, and it will be alias to command get VMI object. It will be much faster to type, as you understand. We created it. Since we created it, probably we can test it now. So we don't have to type get VMI object, we just type VMI, and then let's say Win32 operating system. There is a huge list of objects that you can consume in Windows PowerShell, and perhaps it's a good reason to buy a book like, well, I don't know, PowerShell Unleashed or PowerShell Bible, something with a few thousands of sheets. Now we've got information, and it's information about our operating system, including its build number, version, and so on. And each of these lines, it's not just a text. This is the biggest difference in PowerShell when I said that it's object-oriented. Let's imagine that you have object human being, human, and object human has other objects, object leg, object head, object hand, and there are properties of each of these objects, like hand could be right or left, and there are other objects within this object like fingers, and each of these fingers has its own properties. But when you list these objects here in a command prompt, you will see just head, hand, finger. You will not see anything behind it. But when you want to work with that, you can just type that you're working with this object, with this property. You can change it, and so on and so on. So each object has its text representation. For example, for a human being it could be his name, and for left hand it would be just a string saying left hand, and so on. So everything you see here is just a cap of the iceberg. There are much more information. There could be much more information behind each of these lines. Now, very important thing about PowerShell, when you're using it for the first time, Microsoft secured it, so you cannot just run your PowerShell scripts, that PS1 files, if they are not signed. Besides, you want to run your scripts without signing them, and to do that you have to run one command which changes the execution policy of PowerShell, and this command is like this: set execution policy remote signed. This is it. Now the PowerShell is set to allow the PS1 files. PS1 is the extension for PowerShell scripts, so they are allowed to be executed. Without that, you would get error, even if your PowerShell script would be fine. Another thing that you can use in PowerShell, but not necessarily will, but in your environment, in your own workstation or servers, wherever, it could be a good idea, are so-called profiles. Profile is like what you know by autoaccess.bat, the auto execution file which runs in older operating systems like Windows 95 or something, and could be switched on in modern operating systems. Anyway, it's autorun file with the PowerShell commands, and it has a variable stored in it has its path stored in profile variable, and using the command test path we are checking whether this path exists, meaning this file exists in this case. So it returned false, and false means that there is no profile defined. And what we will do now, we will create the profile file and we'll put some comments into it. So we are creating new item, and just like we created directory before, we set the path, and the path is stored in profile variable. The item type will be file, not directory this time, and we will use the force parameter. If you remember, we asked for help about new item commandlet, and there was the explanation about what force means. So perhaps it's a good reason for you to run PowerShell locally now and get help for new item, and so you will see the list of all switches and know what force means. Okay, so here we see that in C users administrator documents Windows PowerShell was created a file Microsoft PowerShell profile.ps1. However, its length is 0, which means there is nothing in it. But if we will, I'm just pressing the up arrow. If we will test path of that profile now, it will say true, which means file exists. Very good. So what we will do now, we will load this file into Notepad. However, Notepad is definitely not the best editor for PowerShell files. Unlike the VB script, which doesn't have good free editor, yes, there is a, let me recall, the Primal script, which is the best editor for Visual Basic script files at the moment. However, PowerShell comes with its own editor, which is free and is installed by default. However, in this particular case, just for simplicity's sake, we will use Notepad. And here is our brand new profile, and here we will type a few comments which will be executed each time we are running the PowerShell. Now I saved some time to for typing, and I will just show you the result of my typing. And Here are basically 4 lines. First, you can see this character, which means that this line is a comment. It will not be executed. So the first and the third line, these are just comments. The second line shows that I am executing this comment, and we already seen this comment. It creates the PS drive, and it will only be here within this session. It will disappear after the session will end. And void here means that we don't want to see the result of this comment. As you remember, when we run the new PS drive, we've seen the result like after dir, which showed us that this drive was created. It showed us the characteristics of that drive. But when we are putting it after void in parentheses, we will not see any result. It's the same as in batch files. We type echo off, which means we will not see this comment. But here we will not see even the result of the comment. And the last comment is changing to that drive. So everything is very simple. And every time we run Windows PowerShell, the new PS drive will be created, routed to the labs. It will be called labs, and we will be using it as our root by default. Let's just test it. We close this PowerShell and open it again. And here we go. We are in labs. So with profile you can set a few commands to run automatically for you. Another concept of Windows PowerShell is pipelines. When you're running one command, you can use the results of this command in your second command if you will put it after the pipeline, and this looks like this. We are getting the location where we are, then put the pipeline, and now let's format line, drive, path, provider path. And so, as you can see, the second command gives us the result of the first command. Get location gives us the very simple result where we are. But then, as this is the object and it contains much more information than we see after the normal command, we can get much more from it. We get the drive, we get the path, and the provider path. Provider, as you remember, was the file system. So this is the path in the file system. And as I said before, just like with file system, we can work with registry. And just like get location, we can use the command set location. And set location is the target for our CD alias. So CD is an alias, and what in fact it does is set location. And we will go to HK local machine. It's absolutely the same as to say CD. cd_hklm. And if I wouldn't know the set location command, I would use the cd alias, and that would be fine. That's what I meant when I said that you can make a shortcut in your learning curve. You can just create aliases for command that you know from other system to perform commands of Windows PowerShell. Now that we are in HK local machine, most likely we will want to go somewhere, and well, let's just have one example of what we can do with the registry, at least how we can display it. And let's change to software. I press tab and it fills it automatically. Microsoft, Windows NT. We can browse with tab. That's just wonderful. Current version. Yeah. Now if you want to list the content in what you've seen before, we've used the alias dir, which is the command from even from MS-DOS time, and that gives us good result. Or we can use the original command behind it, which is get child item, and without the parameter it means that give us all child items. And let's see what's in here. Not much, but what is quite important here is that you don't see the current version in that list. You see only what is behind the current version, below the current version. Only the sub keys of that hive are listed. Remember that we were using the variable named profile, which is a system variable, and it always displays the path to your profile. The same, you can create your own variables which will survive during this session. And we will create one curlOc, which means current location, and it will be like a shortcut to get location, but it's not really a shortcut, it's not alias, it's a variable. And when we create variable, what's the difference with alias? The alias will run the command because it's like a shortcut to program, but curlOc in this case it's a variable, and it will contain the result of get location that we during the execution of this command. So currently our location is HKLM, software, Microsoft, Windows NT, current version, and this information will be saved to curlOc. Great. Now, to highlight what we've said before, that PowerShell is object-oriented. What's been saved here in curlOc is not just a string with HKLM, software, Microsoft, Windows, blah blah blah, but it's a pointer to the object. So we can get the item property, the properties of this item, and it will look like this. get item property with path of carlog and name of current version, and we have all the information like PS drive, PS provider, PowerShell provider is registry in this case, and all the paths and etc. This is not just a string, but instead it's an object. So here we highlight it very well. Now with the up arrow, we can bring back the previous command. But now we will use the pipeline and add format list current version. And this will display only the value of the current version property. So if we don't need all this information except the current version, we can give this command and use its result without displaying anything. Use this result for this formatting command to display only the current version. And I remember when we were using the dir command for listing everything that is under registry Hive, all the keys, here they are. The same, you can use the formatting command to display only what you need. For example, when these keys or files are of a particular type or contains some words in it. Now we will try to create a new script for PowerShell, and in this case we will use Notepad as well as in previous example. Notepad, here we are, and I will type another 4 lines. I saved some of your time to watch me typing, and these are 4 lines of our first script. And what it does is in the first line it creates a variable named var1 and assigns it this string. It creates variable 2 and assigns it the item property of this, and then 2 properties of this second object are printed into the text file. This command means that we are creating this file and putting this value into that file, but this command means that we are appending this information to this file. So if everything is right, if I didn't miss anything, this file will contain 2 lines. First line will contain current version, and second line will contain registered owner. So let's save it as a PowerShell file and let it be on our drive D, labs, current version .ps1. Save it. Good. Now let's run this script, and to run it we just type its name. Nothing happened, and that's good because sorry, because it's in the file. Yeah, carver txt. Here we go. 2 lines, the version and the current user. Well, this is like it for the first time. It's been a pleasure to create my second narrated lab, and I hope you enjoyed it the same way as I enjoyed creating it. I hope that the quality of narrating will improve over time, but at this time I hope it was informative enough for you. So see you next time then, and I hope it will be soon, because I have a plan of creating about 10 sessions for PowerShell for system administrators. And if you have any questions, you definitely can ask them in comments to a blog post in my blog, and you see the URL right here on the screen. And well, have a nice day.